You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. We have an interview for you today. My name is Billy Dees, and with me on the studio line is Jeff Kruszyna. Jeff, welcome to the program. So glad you are here.
Thank you so much for having me, Billy. Looking forward to a great conversation this afternoon.
Awesome. Me too. Jeff is the founder and CEO of JMK Victory, a direct response marketing agency. He has spent 20 years or more in the direct mail industry and has helped raise more than $100 million for political campaigns, PACs, veterans organizations, and advocacy groups. He was studying computer science at Stony Brook University when September 11th happened, and it changed everything. He switched his major to political science, graduated summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa, and went into direct response marketing. He wanted to be a part of something bigger. There's a fascinating and largely untold story happening right now in American politics, he says, and business, what he calls the Patriot economy. It's the growing movement of Americans who are making purchasing, donating, and business decisions based on their values. It's reshaping how campaigns raise money, how nonprofits engage donors, and how entire industries are being built in parallel to mainstream institutions. And I got to tell you, for a long time, I'm of a certain age, as they say, of a certain age. And the wisdom was always, especially in advertising and marketing, stay away from politics. And for the most part, there may be some truth to that, but I have noticed now that everyone, rightly or wrongly, we could debate the societal impact of this, if it's good or bad, but for some reason or another, everybody wears a badge now, whether it's their sexual orientation, whether it's their ethnicity, whether it's their religion, whether it's their political affiliation. Everybody's got a badge on now. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to support the team. And that's kind of where we're at. Is that basically correct? Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, it's really been that on steroids over the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 years. Really it was, I want to say, the COVID time was where big Fortune 500 companies and brands started, as you mentioned, wearing the badge and either going woke on the left, or now with the folks that I get the privilege to work alongside, going and doing the Patriot economy, pro-America, pro-freedom, pro-constitutional values. It's definitely the conviction-driven, both marketing and consumers, that everybody wants to know that when they're buying this product, whether it's coffee, a cell phone service, what have you, that they're putting their dollars where their ideology aligns. And you can see that both good and bad, and where, companies, I always like to use the Bud Light faux pas of partnering with a transgender influencer and not knowing their audience. And they paid the price for that misstep and have since come back. It's really fascinating that, the Patriot economy is growing by leaps and bounds, and there's more and more companies that are sprouting, day by day. And I'm just happy to help them get their message out to the 76.5 million folks that have a propensity to give and buy.
Sure. Absolutely. We hear a lot about 9/11 in a historical context, and I was well into adulthood when that happened. As a matter of fact, I was on my way to work when I had heard on the radio that they weren't sure if it was an accident or what, but they were saying we're getting reports that a plane crashed into the World Trade Center and
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember that day very, very vividly. And the wisdom was always, well, that is going to change everything. And that's part of another discussion for another time. In some ways it has, in some ways it hasn't, in my opinion. In some ways we're right back. We're having the same conversations that we did before. But on a personal level, especially if you were anywhere near those areas in Washington, Pennsylvania, and so forth, you were impacted by it differently. How did it impact you? It obviously did.
Sure. So I was a 18-year-old college freshman at SUNY Stony Brook, which is about an hour from Ground Zero in downtown Manhattan. And yeah, I was a freshman on college campus, walking from class to class, noticed, something out of the ordinary. People are worried and talking. And, so I asked someone, what's going on, and something seems off. And the initial reports were a plane hit one of the Twin Towers. And at first the reports were, it was a small plane.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, ran to the nearest TV, cause we're talking nearly 25 years ago. So no smartphones, no, social media really. Facebook wasn't even a thing yet. And, I saw on TV the second plane hitting the second tower on repeat, and the reports that the Pentagon had gotten hit. There was another plane, down in Shanksville. And it was at that moment that something stirred inside of me that, I was a computer science undergrad at that point, thinking I was going to go into tech. And that was kind of the career path I was on. And from that moment forward, I fairly quickly changed my major, to political science, got very involved politically and conservative movement wise, got connected with Young America's Foundation, which is a client to this day. They saved Ronald Reagan's ranch, is what they're probably most well known for. Mm-hmm. That kind of connected me into the work that I do, and have spent the last 20 plus years doing as far as a direct response marketing, advertising, fundraising, specifically for kind of right of center nonprofits, political campaigns, and now products as well. And so, it was a complete shift of everything I thought up until that point, what I was going to school for and all that. And it's crazy to think that we're coming up to the 25-year anniversary and everyone knows where they were that day. And I can still, remember walking on campus, exactly where I was and who I asked, and the rest is history now. And I'm just, privileged to help, just very strong America First folks, defend our freedoms. Yeah.
Before I get into, your fundraising work and the psychology of donating, which I think is fascinating, I really want to hear that.
Sure.
But going into this idea of politically oriented things, mm-hmm. If I was running a campaign right now, I think one of the things that would be very frustrating, even if I had a client that truly wanted to be unbiased, truly wanted to provide nuance, truly wanted to get into those things, I would be very concerned that we're dealing with a public now that doesn't have patience for that. They either want to know if you're on their side or they're not. Can they believe in what you believe in because they already believe in it is kind of what's happening. And like I said, I'm someone of a certain age. I can remember back in the 80s as a young adult. And you had conservatives in the tradition of Ronald Reagan and liberals in the tradition of, let's say, Tip O'Neill.
Sure.
But they all lived in the same universe in terms of how the rules of physics worked. We all agreed which way was up, which way was down. And as controversial as Bill Clinton was, he's become a lightning rod for controversy. But at the time, he was very, I would say, right-leaning progressive, if there is such a thing. Him and Newt Gingrich got things done. Mm-hmm. You could argue for better or for worse, but they got things done because they lived in the same universe. Okay. What we have now on both sides is we have a radicalization of where people are not only entitled to their own opinion, but they are entitled to their own reality. And people on the left will, no matter what you say, have a disdain for America, I'm talking about the radicals now, have a disdain for America, have a disdain for any progress that we've made socially. We're the worst country in the world, the way we treat any group that you can possibly think of. And then we have on the other side, on the conservative side, we have a group of individuals who will cheer America no matter what it does, deny that there's any problems. It's the best country on earth. It's a utopian, existence right here on planet Earth. And neither one of these sides back in the 1980s, getting back to what I was saying, they were on the fringes. They're not now. They're huge swaths of the population. And how can you reach people who will not acknowledge a point that you have, even if they know you're correct? They won't even acknowledge it. How do you reach enough people to win an election when you have such large swaths that are entrenched in what I would call a false reality? It's almost a cult. And I would say, you talk about religious zealots. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, the exact same thing going on in the mind is true with these leftist ideologies, that they've become these things. You cannot tell them otherwise. No matter how much proof there is, they will not yield on their position. And I find that a scary time because in the last 5 years, I've noticed this, and I've never noticed it before. I always thought that there was a collective wisdom that the American people had. I'm not so sure that wisdom is there anymore. And it's one of the fears that the founding fathers had. That's why we have an electoral college, So what's your opinion on that? How do you fight your way through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the blessing and the curse of the digital age and the blessing of being able to have these conversations virtually where we're in two completely different areas of the country and able to kind of have these conversations is great. But the curse is, you're a slave to the algorithm, right? Where you're only going to get force fed more of the same, whether that's on the right or the left. Now, obviously, as a Christian conservative, pro-America fella, it is definitely my viewpoint that the fringe of the fringe on the left has really overtaken the Democrat Party. I think of, again, being from New York and being there for 9/11 and the years right after, there was that outpouring that it kind of on 9/12, we're all America, we're gonna fight back, we're gonna win. And if you told 18-year-old Jeff that 25 years later, New York City would be governed by a radical extremist leftist Muslim in the city that Giuliani built and turned around during his tenure, America's mayor, I'd say you're crazy. But as far as reaching the vast majority of America, I think, when you talk about those core issues, yes, the talking heads on either side, and I would, my own biases or the left is gone off the deep end of crazy, where we should be able to, and I think still the vast majority of Americans support our country, want to see America succeed. Yes, we're not sinless, we're all sinners. However, America is the best country on the face of God's green earth, and we should have that kind of pride. And you see it with the Olympics, how many folks were supporting, when the American hockey team won the gold. And that kind of, team spirit and Team America, I think is still the 80-20 issue of you're just getting the kind of crazies on the edges that won't listen no matter what because you're red or blue. But the vast majority, if you can message it correctly in the right way, they will listen because there's a lot more that we do agree on. And the fringes, especially on the left, have just gone crazy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I believe two things can be true at once. In that, there's radical thinking on both sides of the political spectrum. But if you had to gauge, right now the needle goes into the crazy section a little bit more on the left. and quite frankly, that was a big part of why Trump won. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing that you can suggest, especially in terms of the social constructs of our society and what was normal and what isn't. There is nothing you can suggest to some of the people on the far left that is too outlandish. There's just there is no limit. So I believe, and quite frankly, it's nothing against Trump. I honestly believe people looked at Trump and said, yeah, he's outrageous. He says a lot of outrageous things. But you know what? In comparison with what they're doing over there, I'll take that. And the anti-vote, with Biden coming in with some of the ideas he had in that last year, and then with Kamala, and what they were doing with I know they deny it, with the warfare, the legal warfare. Americans just said no. If that's my choice, I'll take the Trump version of crazy than what's on the left. Am I right in that analysis that the anti-vote is kind of what carried him?
Yeah, I mean, America wanted a fighter, and you saw that when Trump is going, on trial in New York City, and you're getting rallies of people organically coming to support him, and seeing that the government's coming after him for frivolous charges made up, and it's all kind of rigged, on his marketing, and someone who grew up with, Donald Trump, the celebrity, and all his, outlandish tabloid gossip kind of persona. He knows how to brand himself, and the Make America Great Again, America First. The first campaign, the lock her up of the Clinton corruption, like beautifully branded. And after 4 years of Biden, or the auto pen, as I would say, because that was another thing of the mainstream media refused to acknowledge what everyone could see up until that debate they had of Trump versus Biden. And it was clear as to anyone that Biden just mentally was not there and shouldn't be in the office. And he was just kind of empty vessel that they were using at that point. And it was sad to see, someone who had spent his years, in public service, and, I can, bash and nitpick all his policies, but, at the end of the day, they're about the same age, Trump and Biden, but Trump seems like he's 20 or 30 years younger. And even now, I know you mentioned Bill Clinton, seeing, Bill Clinton have to testify, and just seems much older than he is. And Trump just keeps, getting stronger, never sleeps, always going, always fighting. And it's that kind of charisma and energy, and the kind of the New York street fighter that he's always been, that America really wanted after, in my opinion, after 8 years of Obama. Even though Obama was a great orator and could give a really good speech, America wanted something different. And then, now we're seeing, Trump 45, Biden, Trump 47. It was clear America wanted more of the Trump policies. And yes, they're willing to, he says the darndest thing sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's that America First majority in the country that's not Republican or Democrat. They just, and you're seeing it when you mention, back to Reagan and Tip O'Neill, the kind of Trumpism of the kind of populist, blue collar, conservative, that wasn't the same, Republican of the Bush era, that I, grew up post 9/11 of the, George W. Bush admin. Definitely, change of pace. But, what unites us as a country, I think, and you're seeing it with the brands that I get to work with, they're on the come up, and people are looking for alternatives for name your product. There is a patriotic brand that'll offer you coffee or tea, or I'm just looking around my room right now of things that I have in general. And yeah, it's great to see that there is this American pride still. And every couple of years with the Olympics, you get that. But just awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking about raising money, and I really want to ask you next about the psychology of giving, because I think that's something very important. I know a lot of people who are running for office this year in various local capacities. Know a lot of people that are involved in the fundraising world in general. And by the way, I think that nonprofits have gotten a bad rap. I think that there's a lot of really good nonprofits out there. And one thing I would notice, regardless of what their mission is, the more experienced, the more degreed that you are, if you are working at a nonprofit, there's a good chance you really believe in the mission, because you could make a lot more money in the private sector.
Correct.
So it tells me that a lot of people really do believe in some of these things that they're trying to do in the community, especially when it's helping the homeless and things like that.
Right.
I think what's caused a lot of this is some nonprofits have taken on a political identity. Mm-hmm. Planned Parenthood would probably be one.
Sure.
And here again, I'm not knocking Planned Parenthood for those that believe in it. That's fine. But I mean, a tactic like putting a van with, the abortion pill at the convention, that was an antagonistic tactic. That's what that was. They were antagonizing conservatives, and I don't know if that's what a nonprofit should be doing, but it's not representative of nonprofits in general. So I just kind of want to say that, because there's a lot of ones out there you don't hear about because they're not out there stirring up things. They're trying to help people. Okay.
Sure.
With that being said, the psychology of winning an appeal to either get a grant or to get a donation. What are some of the dynamics of that?
I mean, really, it all comes down to, that emotion and identity and mission are kind of the three things you're looking at, of, especially in good old fashioned postal mail, is telling that compelling story. So if you're a nonprofit, whether you're helping the homeless or veterans or what have you, it's making that connection, whether it's locally of, the good work they're doing, you see them in the community, you want to tell, a firsthand account of someone who's been helped by them, or at the national level, whether you're, on the other side of the Planned Parenthood or the crisis pregnancy centers and all these pro-life causes that are doing the Lord's work, and, saving the unborn and helping, young mothers to be, and, all those kind of the compelling emotion of it. And that's really my background, is in that, the creative side of copywriting, telling that story, whether you're a political candidate, a product, or in this case, where we're talking about nonprofits, is really getting understanding, sitting down with the folks that work there. The founders are normally the ones that we really want to talk to. The executive director and the rest of the staff are great too, but hearing the founder's story and why they started the organization really hits home to, who we want to work with on, when it comes to my company. But regardless of political persuasion or, what issue and what value set you're coming at it from, it's really that emotional, story driven, compelling, the verbiage that we use, and everything from the colors and the words on the outer envelope that we call the carrier envelope, because it's carrying the letter to you, to the stamp choices, being a direct mail nerd, knowing, what different postage treatments and seeing what market, this kind of more slick marketing uses versus the more personalized, looks like you're getting a letter from grandma in your mailbox. And ultimately you have that, 3 to 5 seconds when someone checks their mailbox where they're looking, through their stack of mail to get them to keep hold of that letter and open it and sit down and do something with it. Whereas, on the digital side, yes, I've plenty of friends and great partners that do the same kind of work, but on email and digital. But if I asked you, to find an email you got from 3 days ago, it'd take a little while of scrolling and whatnot. Whereas, if you got a letter yesterday, you can probably remember, the color the envelope was, like who it was from or something. And if it was from a family member or a loved one, you're going to want to read that. And that's part of the the science behind the marriage of art and science of direct mail, really, is that the white space, the font choices, the colors, all that goes into the kind of the psychology and the emotions and the compelling story. And then there's the data side of knowing who we're targeting and building audiences to receive the letter, because as great a letter as I can craft or my team crafts, if we're mailing it to the wrong people, like, if we're mailing a pro-life piece to a Planned Parenthood donor, that's going to get thrown out. That's, so the marriage of the data science and the compelling story driven persuasion is really where direct mail sits. And that's sort of the nuts and bolts of what I do and love doing, obviously.
Yeah. When it comes to direct mail, I understand some of the tactics. For example, pamphlets, things like that. Sure. People may not look at them, but they'll typically toss them on the coffee table or toss them on the kitchen counter, and they hang around a little bit. Sure, because they appear to have value. And of course, you can target different economic groups, usually with zip codes and things like that, sure. And so forth. But I am still in this day and age of digital. I would say what's really changed is, and here again, this is another conversation because of the fact I've been around so long, but traditional advertising is what's really, really gone 180 degrees different. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that the strategies behind digital and direct mail, correct me if I'm wrong, are very similar. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that you have a short amount of time to grab their attention.
Correct.
What would you say to the naysayers that say nobody looks at it's junk mail? It gets gathered up and tossed the minute you get in the door. That's probably what you hear the most.
Yeah, I mean, I joke all the time. I'm like, yes, it's marketing mail, but yes, the whole idea of junk mail, and that's really the stigma. And direct mail has been dying my entire career, which means that it's not, and it's thriving. And the fact that there's less competition in the mailbox these days because costs do rise. I mean, paper costs, postage costs, everything, all in, we're trying to get it under $1 now, where even when I started, we were trying to get it, under 50 cents, and talking to, some folks that got their start in the 60s and 70s, they were mailing out at, less than 10 cents all in with postage. And I'm like, oh man, like if it cost what it did back then now, like we would be mailing, millions and millions and millions beyond what we're already doing. But all to say, yes, the mailbox is less crowded, and there's a higher perceived value of the physical mail, especially the prototypical fundraising piece that we're putting together for nonprofits or campaigns is a long form letter. It's not a flyer. It's a 4-page letter that's telling the story of either the campaign or what the nonprofit is doing, with some sort of call to action. Either join the campaign team, send back this petition, complete this survey, and include a donation to help us do XYZ, win in November, what have you. And so it is that when I was taught how to do this, it was the write a letter to grandma, like explain in the easiest common sense terms. Don't use, big college words as someone with a master's degree. I had to unlearn all that early on, and the rules of grammar don't apply on marketing. It's more that, and I always, will use a Trump speech of, he has his rally calls. He repeats himself. And I always like to tell the story of sitting down with a former member of Congress, and he'd say, we'd have the best policy, proposal for immigration reform. And the average person's eyes glaze over. Trump gets on stage and says, build the wall, 3 words. Everyone knows what he means. And people are chanting it. And it's very clear. Border security, we're building a wall. Got it. And that's, in a nutshell, like if you look at dissecting a direct mail piece, you need to see that common theme of the repetition, the call to action to really motivate that person that just opened the letter to probably not going to read word for word, even though, I've painstakingly chosen every word, but the idea of it's skimmable. You have the repetition, you have the bold, the underline, different, tricks of the trade to keep the reader's eyes going and get them to do the action that ultimately is what we're trying to do, is get them to give that first contribution, and then we can cultivate from there.
Okay. What's the biggest mistake that, especially going into this new age, we're coming up on 26 already, which it's hard to believe that where time is going. 28 is, arguably right around the corner. What are some of the biggest mistakes that campaigns are doing right now?
I'd say, it was very, very clear that, and it's the age old, direct mail is not inexpensive, in that I can send out emails for pennies on the dollar, or now texting is all the craze. And that certainly, I'm not dissuading folks. I think you should be talking across all channels, definitely take an omni-channel approach. And the I think hesitation to start earlier, because it is a building process, because yes, something I'm writing today and putting into production is going to be in your mailbox a month from now. It does take more planning, but those donors have a much higher lifetime value. And on a campaign trail, yes, you may only have, 18 months, generally max, for your campaign, because we're in a 2-year cycle. So I always say start early, and you want to build that grassroots. And, if we want to use an example, from the other side, I say, look at, the Obama versus Hillary campaign, and how Obama, came out of obscurity. And it's actually a great book, The Audacity to Win by David Plouffe, who was his campaign manager in 2008, where Hillary's campaign focused on their major donors and the folks that, owe their career to Bill Clinton, giving max out checks. And Obama focused and his team innovated on the digital side, the, $2 raffle to win, lunch with Senator Obama kind of strategy. And you got this groundswell of folks giving $2, $4, $10 gifts that they could continue to tap into to give again. Whereas there are on the campaign side, there are caps to what individuals can contribute. Yeah. And so where Hillary's folks were already maxed out and tapped out, Obama had this, complete groundswell grassroots campaign. And not only are those donors, but those are people that are voting for you and telling their friends to vote for you. So that's what I like to especially say to either first-time candidates, or especially on the local level, somebody who's giving you $5 is going to go tell their brother, sister, next door neighbor, like, hey, I really like this guy, I'm going to go vote for him. Like, you should too. Like, you're building a movement here, whether that's for, local office all the way up to president. And you're seeing that with Trump, who, is a billionaire, but folks were contributing. And yes, he was, and as I mentioned before we started recording, I like to collect political paraphernalia. So I have lots of different MAGA hats and varieties and whatnot. But yeah, it was I want one of those, be a part of the movement kind of thing. And yeah, he didn't need to fundraise because he could self-fund. But that whole idea of you have not just donors, but people supporting you. And same thing on a nonprofit side. I would argue is even more critical, because you're building that relationship of someone who maybe they're a $5 donor today, But, if you cultivate and build that relationship over time, they're probably going to leave you, something in their will or, deferred giving. I've seen all that, go from, there's always the story of the janitor at a school who had given, $5 to the local homeless shelter because they helped him. And then he ends up giving his entire estate to them because of how much, and it's that ultimately that relationship and the minor role I think, I'm able to play with my company and what I do is building that relationship, thanking the donor for their gift, reminding them that they gave and giving them real-time updates of your money helped us do these great things, whether it's, building homes for wounded warriors or helping paralyzed veterans walk again, like all these, heartwarming stories. But it's really, yes, even on the political side, your $25 donor in Iowa, like probably not going to, go travel to Washington to lobby a congressman, but by supporting the right political nonprofits or action committees, is able to have an outsized voice and able to affect change, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or your state capital or local school board.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna throw you a curveball now. I always gotta give you a curveball once in a while.
Sure.
You've said, conservative, faith driven and all that. And that's wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic. From a business point of view,
sure.
If somebody came to you with a lot of left leaning ideology and said, I know we disagree politically, but I do feel like you do good work and I want to hire you. Could you take on a client who you don't necessarily get excited about, and in some cases may actually disagree with?
No.
How do you handle that one?
No, I would say, that's a hard no. There is something to be said about, keeping true to your values, but also the most successful letters I've ever had are the ones that I feel the most, personally driven by. And you can tell that in the copy. So I'm like, I guess, using the Planned Parenthood, like formulaically, yes, I could figure out how to message a pro-abortion, pro-murder, using their language of choice and whatnot. But it would the emotions behind it wouldn't be there, and the copy would feel kind of dead. So all that to say, I mean, there's definitely been times where, especially on the data side, where folks would try to come and ask, to use our databases, and I'd say, look, the folks that we're cultivating and building, like, I could make some quick money on you, but like it's not going to work long term, because the folks that we're talking to and the databases we're building, those type of donors aren't going to give to a left of center cause. And that's kind of the both practical and I think core conviction side of it. Just wouldn't work for multiple reasons.
Yeah. I'm actually on the side of businesses, regardless of what they are, most of the time, of being able to and not want to engage with certain clients. A lot of these, for example, every time, bakeries seem to be the target of this. Somebody won't sell somebody a cupcake or whatever. Right. And it is true that all the walking through the door, when you have a public enterprise and you're inviting the general public in, you can say no shirt and no shoes, no service, as long as it applies to everyone. Okay. Sure. That's the thing. You can't say these people come in and these people can't without a shirt, because that's discrimination. Okay.
Right.
It's a little different when you, whatever service you are providing requires some sort of a relationship. And I find the lawyers that take on these cases, I'd like to ask, have you ever refused a case? Of course they have.
Yeah.
For example, years ago, I was a disc jockey in an MC many, many years ago. and I was asked to MC a religious ceremony on a Sunday afternoon. They wanted my presence there for the just to read and provide a PA system and do all these other things.
Sure.
And they wanted me to wear a certain I don't want to say costume, that's not, but the proper attire, which meant I would have had to buy clothes. There was a number of this religion. It was some type of Jewish faith, but I don't know exactly what it was. Certain amount of music that had to be involved, and these other things as the ceremony went along. And I said, I fully support freedom of religion. You can believe whatever you want. I don't necessarily disagree with what you believe in, but you're asking me to basically pretend, because I know nothing about this religion. I know nothing. While people are praying and everything, I'm not going to feel it because I'm not really a religious person in any regard. So I think you'd be better off getting someone who understands the culture, who understands the faith, and can participate this with their whole heart involved. And I don't think that's it. And somebody on the outside could look at that, well, you didn't take that because you don't like them. That's not it at all. It was doing the right thing by them.
Right.
In my opinion, because I couldn't just simply understand or relate to what was happening. Do you find that agreeable?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to the old joke of Michael Jordan saying, Republicans buy sneakers too, when they were trying to get him to engage politically. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he said it in jest, but there is I would love if companies weren't overtly political, but in the world that we are in, like that, shines through. In that case, I'd say, yes, you want to be true to yourself ultimately, and being the genuine person you are, whether that's leading an organization or running for office. You're seeing, the one thing America doesn't have a stomach for are hypocrites, where if you're pretending to be one thing when the camera's on, and in this world of everyone's got a, smartphone camera, you can get got really, really quickly. And TMZ and all those kind of things exist. So it's, holding true, whether you're running a business or, seeking public office or running a nonprofit. Like, if you're not who you say you are, there's going to be a backlash at some point. You don't know when or where, but just be yourself and true to your values, and the rest kind of pays off for itself.
Yes.
It's the imposter syndrome or faking it reigns hollow, especially in our hyper, video centered world. I know we're obviously recording digital video and audio, but it's just be true to who you are, and that will connect with people.
One more curveball.
Sure.
We hear a lot about AI.
Sure.
And I believe for these types of applications, when it comes to targeting, let's say, certain groups for money, taking the temperature of certain issues in society, things of that nature, that's a perfect application for AI.
Yep.
Is that going to impact you? I think one of the, for example, I get asked a lot if it's going to impact, because I do digital media and I do editing and all that.
Sure.
And the short answer is yes, it has impacted me, but not in the areas where you think.
Sure.
For example, when I go out and record people and all that's all real time. You need boots on the ground for that. Where it has impacted people that do what I do, were the people who made a living doing the clips and the promotional stuff.
Right.
That type of thing, where AI is sorting through what already has been done, is kind of where the damage is being done for people who work in this business. I'm going to say that I use AI for generating clips and all that myself.
Sure.
So I would imagine it's kind of like that with you too. It's kind of a double-edged sword. You have a tool that you didn't have before, but in some cases is it working against you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely supercharges our efforts, as you mentioned on the front end, the kind of data targeting. I mean, there's always been data modeling, whether now the term is AI, but the big machine data, machine learning, large language models, all, now is AI. But it's all, the evolution of the same thing. So yes, targeting the right audiences and that the level of data analysis you can get is great. On the creative side, you still do need that human kind of emotional part, but when it comes to research and things like that, using a Claude or a Grok or a ChatGPT is all it just makes me and my team 5 or 10 times more effective, and the ability to research a campaign or a nonprofit that would usually take days, I can do in 15 minutes with some prompts into, some AI engine, and it will give me all the sources and everything that would have taken so much longer. At the same time, I'd say where AI is able to also on the creative side is that hyper personalization. So instead of saying, dear Billy, I know this about you, like it can, pick up on, okay, we know that you gave to this group. So we're going to talk about, the local, homeless shelter or the dog rescue that you had given to, or things like that, where you can hyper personalize down to the individual, not the kind of more generic that is really what I launched my career in as, dear fellow American, we know you, and hitting those kind of high notes. You're still doing that, but also now you're able to drill down even further. So that's where I think AI has been a help. Now it's only as good as what you put into it. So, and you do need that, there's no, well, AI will just replace us all. That's, I don't think exactly what's going to happen. It's just, you need to know how to use it. Otherwise you're going to be left behind. And same idea, like whether it comes to clips and I know I say a lot. So when I clip this, I'll have removed a lot of the ums, but yeah, it's another tool in the toolbox, I'd say. And it's been super helpful. So I'll leave it at that.
We've been talking to Jeff Kruszyna, and interesting stuff. I think you can approach this from a lot of different ways. Sure. If you are political, you might be interested in some of the things you're doing, especially if you're a conservative. And if you are just interested in how direct mail works, any of that type of stuff, I think you have a lot of information to offer. Where can people find you?
Sure. The easiest way is go to getjeffk.com. And you can actually, for anyone listening to your podcast, I'm happy to offer a free 30-minute strategy session if you just want to kind of talk shop and see how how direct mail might be able to help your organization or whatever cause you're passionate about. Happy to have that conversation. JMK Victory is my company. I'm on all the social media platforms, so I'll spell my last name, and I'm sure you'll link it in the show notes, but Kruszyna. Pretty sure I'm the only Jeff Kruszyna out there in the Googleverse. So I'm easy to find and happy to have a conversation with just about anybody.
Yeah, there's a few other Billy Dees out there. As a matter of fact, when Billy D. Williams was on Dancing with the Stars a couple of years ago, I was getting all these tweets from people telling me I was too old to be dancing. That's wrong, Billy D. But anyway,
nice.
Yes, you can find me, as far as social media goes, at Billy Dees on Twitter, which now is X. And so I always say the platform formerly known as Twitter, now X, is where you can find me. And I'm present on most of the other social media as well. Just Google search for the Billy Dees podcast. Now, we are on all the major podcast platforms, all of them. Billy Dees podcast. No matter where you get your podcast from, we will show up. We have over a 10-year history. So we're very easy to find. Jeff, thank you so much for being a guest today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. This has been a great conversation, and happy to continue continue in the future.
Absolutely, 100%. We'll have to revisit this. For everyone else, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. And we will talk to you again very soon. I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter @Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.